Good evening, folks. Welcome to our new time, Vinyl Junkies, episode 47. Today we'll be focusing on metal 2018 so far. Hello, Kimberly. How are you?
Jumbo Sam, how are you?
Jambo. Yeah. Good,
Jambo.
man. I've been looking so forward to doing this metal show with you simply because it's just... We talk about so many genres, but this is just the one thing that I always want to get into. The frustrating part is that there's so much stuff that comes out, it's impossible to hit it all, but we have a good show up for you. First of all, we put up a flash poll, kind of asking you guys what you thought the original Big Four was for Doom. We'll talk about that. The results are in. It was an interesting poll and stuff happened. Me and Kim, we got shit to say, metalheads. Then we'll also talk about some records that we're both listening to. Yob, our Raw Heart. Both of us have that. We got stuffs to talk about. Earthless, Black Heaven. Judas Priest, I picked that up. The last one, Firepower, because you guys kept talking about how good it is. So I listened to that today. And then Abandon All Hope by Nails, which both Kim and I have. And we'll talk about it. Kim's been listening to a band called White. It's the first time I'll be hearing about this, so looking forward to hearing it. And we'll talk about the charts, the metal charts, and how metal sells. We might do that every once in a while. Some interesting stuff in there. How have you been, Kim?
I'm good. I had a little crisis today, but it's better. We had a missing cat that we feared had died, and I found her. Yeah, all day. It's been very stressful, but she's alive. She's well.
Kitty cat. Stress situations. Do you follow? I wish I remember the name of the account, but there's a Twitter account that's nothing but pictures of cats, but cats that kind of like look really regal or really kind of like they got something going on, like really Game of Thrones like, and they just add these big Norse sayings attached to them. It's like, onward we march to the battle until the dark takes us, kind of thing. And you just see this big fluffy cat.
There's one of those on Facebook that's called, I think, Black Metal Cats, and they're all like, the winter is doom and doom is the winter, or whatever. This fluffy
I'm
dark
wondering
cat.
if it's the same account, but it's just my kind of stupidity, man. Cat pictures.
I do too. Cat and metal, and yeah, I'm in.
It works. It does.
So anyway, I am so good right now. I'm elated.
Kitty cat is okay. Good. Okay, well, look, we're going to get to the individual albums at the end, but why don't we talk about what we found most interesting and what really happened as a lark? I mean, just something that I thought of. You guys seem to enjoy the themed shows, so we decided to do a metal theme, and then I woke up this morning and thought, hey, wait a second, when we think about metal, when we think about 80s metal, everybody talks about the thrash Big Four, right? The Big Four is obvious by now. Anthrax, Megadeth, Slayer, Metallica, right? So, because I was listening to all this Doom music, I was listening to Yob actually primarily, but I've been listening to a lot of that recently. I started kind of to think, if we had to apply the same thing to Doom, okay, with the caveat, of course, that number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is always Black Sabbath. So Black Sabbath doesn't even belong. Like, that's the Black Sabbath thing. They don't even belong in the argument.
Right.
Okay. But if we had to take that idea, Kim, okay, and just choose our Doom Big Four, which Big Four would they be? So what I did was I started naming out a bunch of bands and just putting them out. And a lot of interesting stuff happened. Some good, some bad. You guys like it when I get pissed off, so I'm going to get a little bit pissed off and tell you why metalheads are assholes. But not really. But
I mean, God,
but
Lord.
Look, just to give you an idea of some of the bands that I put up, okay? I didn't really think about it too much because to me it was just, let's have a good time. Let's find a reason for us to get together and nerd out on music. But of course, that's not the way it turns out with metalheads and the internet. Cocksuckers. So I throw out a bunch of bands. You can agree with some, you can't, okay? So there's the obvious ones, and it came from the top of my head. So Sleep, right, obviously. Yob, I was listening to it. Yob started, what, in like the late 90s or something? I figured that, I was thinking of kind of like that first generation of bands that brought Doom up right? So you're not talking about the Pallbearers and the Windhands, and all of those bands are absolutely worthy. We're talking about the bands that almost happened before Doom was even considered a genre. Everything, you know, obviously before a post-Sabbath type of thing, but those bands that were extremely heavily influenced by the Ionic riff, right? So I just started thinking of it like that. It wasn't a scientific thing, Kim. So what bands come to mind? Why don't you name a couple for me?
Well, I mean, you're talking about like, I consider Sleep and those guys kind of the second wave, but they're
Yeah.
ones that really brought it mainstream. Well, because it's hard because when I think of
No
Doom,
Sabbath.
yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, no Sabbath, but like
Okay.
Pentagram, Saint Vitus.
There we go. Okay.
I think those are, especially Saint Vitus. I feel like they were the American Black Sabbath. I know there's others, Candlemass, blah, 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 whatever. But I do think of Saint Vitus as the first album and the Born Too Late album, and Pentagram, and I think of Sleep, and I think of Yob, and I think of Church of Misery is one of the newer ones, I guess.
No, but the thing is, you see, I included Church of Misery, but I didn't include Saint Vitus. And Saint Vitus, it needs to be said, it was a complete oversight because I didn't put much thought into it. I was just kind of like naming a bunch of bands. Of course, Saint Vitus belongs there, but then it's not genre minutia. We're just trying to have fun. And I kind of like Mem Steen, when I asked him to weigh in on it, he did it probably in the best way possible. It's like, well, you know, there's kind of like the really early ones, of course, of which Saint Vitus is one of them.
Right.
And a band like Trouble is one of them as well. And Pentagram, that's right, you know. And then, you know, it could be argued that bands like Yob and Church of Misery and all of that came after. But the thing is that the timeline is so close. It's always that kind of like late 90s, early 2000s. I think of like, well, SST obviously started that way before Doom was a genre with Saint Vitus. But I think of the beginning albums put out by Southern Lord. And a lot of that was very, very doom-inflected, and I know that I got a lot of my introduction to that. And bands like, you know, bands like Church of Misery were part of that. I mean, they've been recording since, what, 2000, 2001, maybe earlier?
Yeah. So, go on.
So I just, again, right? So these are kind of the bands, and again, I'm going by Yob, Church of Misery, I named Saint Vitus, I named Sleep, of course. You see, and the rest is just, it's not going by memory. And I'm trying to put together my own top four. And my top four in my own head was Sleep, Yob, that I considered immediately, and Jesus, I even forgot the other, just to kind of let you know. But the votes didn't come in that way. The votes came in a little differently, and Yob didn't make the cut. But who did you think? Well, are you able to see the results? Because I'm not. Because if I try to, my computer will.
Yeah, I'll lose it. And I was so busy looking for this girl today that I didn't get to see the results. I saw it when it was kind of starting. And I was laughing at the comments.
I did not.
Right away. Yeah.
I didn't turn on. Okay, I gotta stop fucking with this computer because if I don't, this thing is gonna go down. So I got it in front of me. So this is the way it turns out. Okay. Your top four, and I had to actually put in the word original, okay? Because before we go into what the top four is, should we talk about all of the things that happen when you try to have a conversation with metalheads?
Yeah, I have some things to say.
All right. So, first thing I get, you get the fucking scholar argument. And the thing is that you see these arguments in everything. The scholar argument is, well, you know what? All of these bands that you named, they're not really Doom. Now, what that argument is, it's based on this premise. It's based on, you know what? What you're talking about isn't really what you're talking about. And the reason that they do that is basically, of course, because they gotta do that. And number two, to kind of show themselves as, you know what? I know a little bit more than what this is. But you see, the thing is that the poll was one that I couldn't even come up with the names right now. Off the top of my head. It's not a fucking scholarly treatise, you cocksucker. Fuck. It's not. It's just, we're just talking. But right away, no, you know, these are not really Doom. Then there's the other argument. What? This band wasn't included. This band wasn't included. This list is faulty. Not everybody approaches that. Most people, it should be said, enjoy the spirit of the whole thing. So Bart, you know, from the UK says, you know, This list is missing Pentagram. I would have put Pentagram in there. And when you get somebody that says it's like, well, yeah, absolutely. Pentagram 100% belongs in there. Because as much as you'll say, Kim, for example, that you consider St. Vitus the American Sabbath, I would consider Pentagram the American Sabbath. So to me, well, again, you know, that's the point of discussion. But to me, we were just trying to have something and do something fun together in the group. So you have the people who got to say, well, you know, what it is that you're saying isn't what you're saying at all. And then there's the other people that say, well, what you're saying isn't complete at all. It's full of holes. Let me point out the holes that are there. But the thing is Kim, that they get more sanctimonious about it too. Once they tell you, why were the things not listed in, they get pissed off because a band like High on Fire isn't included. Now, it wasn't scientific, but to me, High on Fire plays 100 miles an hour.
They're not doomed to me.
Pike says that he likes playing with Sleep precisely because he doesn't have to be precise on the guitar. He doesn't have to be as technical, and he can just kind of let the riff take over. So, High on Fire, and then a whole list of things come in. All this is to say that everyone's ready to argue. You know why? Because they got to show you that they're more metal than what you're showing. It's never a discussion. Your turn. Frustration's done.
Yeah, I mean, the metal thing, it's always like that. We're going to talk about some bands that may not technically fall under doom. They might also, I mean, the reason we have genre labels is to help describe to other people what a band is like. If I know that you like Pentagram, I'm going to say, well, maybe you'll like St. Vitus because
Correct.
they are also a doomy band and blah, 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 blah. It's not so that we can put them in these little boxes and say, this is only thing they are. It can be a little subjective. I have some bands in here that go into drone or stoner or psych or, you know, doom. A lot of those kind of genres overlap. Sludge, you know.
Exactly.
So, calm your tits. We're going to talk about metal. It tends to fall kind of under the doom umbrella. And so if it's slow and heavy and you feel like your skull's being crushed in the best possible way, then
you see,
come on. But man, don't genre me to death.
Just seriously, my box is more relevant than your. Fuck off, man.
It's so annoying. However,
because I thought, right, I didn't include I Hate God. I thought of I Hate God, but to me, oh, you know what? I think more Sludge. Now, if we start doing that, then we got to include maybe Down, and you start going into this whole thing, and you know what? And what's the? There's a whole bunch of bands that could have been included. The Melvins could have been included very easily.
Boris, Noise, Doom. Yeah.
But so all this is to say that
let's talk about what we did get.
Yes, we did. And I actually did put up the top 4. Were you able to find it? The top 4, honestly, when it comes down to it, I included Yob in my top 4. But the way it's turned out, I think, is really quite indicative of what people think. And I think it's pretty accurate as well. Number 1 is Sleep. Everybody agrees, it seems, that Sleep belongs. You know, with the caveat that they kind of came after the St. Vitus and all that. But still, I kind of put that entire post-Sabbath thing together. Okay, as second wave. Number 2 was Electric Wizard.
Yep.
Again, an argument can be made that that's another wave after that, but Electric Wizard, which I had in my group as well. Those were the only two. Those were the only 2 that made my top 4. Number 3 was Candlemass, and I think that does very much belong there because it did come out during that that late 90s period, way before Doom was considered Doom. And, you know, I think maybe I might be wrong here, but the reason Candlemass doesn't really show up on the map too much here in North America is because it was a big European phenomenon more than it was here.
Although, you know, the metalheads, if you're a big old metalhead like we are, then it doesn't, maybe Candlemass didn't make it to the overall masses, but anybody who's into Doom, like, I always have to think, wait, are they American? Are they German? Are they whatever? Not always, but you know what I mean? Like, I think big old metalheads don't are going to love Candlemass. I absolutely think they should be in that line,
Absolutely.
that list, as well as Electric Wizard. They were in my list too.
Cathedral was another band that immediately came to mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? Wino and all, which I had
Mm-hmm.
forgotten, but through the conversation, yeah, of course they belong there. But those bands didn't show up. So Sleep, Electric Wizard, Candlemass. Number 4 wound up being Saint Vitus. And you know what? After that, there's a kind of like a split in the votes. So it's kind of decidedly, this is what people, it wasn't close. Right under that, you had the Troubles and you had the Yobs and you had all of that stuff. What was my 4 picks? Yeah, you see Pentagram wound up much further down. I think probably because they weren't, they've had a movie made about them, but they're not really widely known, are they?
I feel like they're a little bit, you have to be of a certain age. You know what I mean?
Maybe.
Like, I feel like they're a little not as celebrated or not as well known. I agree with that, as they should be, but yeah.
But it's funny, the minute that Bart mentioned Pentagram, it's like, that actually, for myself, caused me to change my picks, and it's like, oh yeah, Pentagram most certainly belongs there. So if I had to look at that picks, after looking at this list, okay, I'll list all of them for you in order. Would you change any of your picks? I can't see. I can see that 3 of your top 4 did wind up in the list. So Sleep, Electric Wizard you picked, and Saint Vitus were 3 of the top 4. You didn't take Candlemass. You took Church of Misery, which wound up way at the bottom. Earth being last, which again, is Earth really doom? Is it drone? It's, I don't know, whatever, right? Whatevs.
What else?
Yeah, and I picked Pentagram, which is pretty far down to the bottom as well.
And also, just to say, like, my picks were the big 4. Yob is one of my all-time favorite bands, hands down, period.
Yeah. So that's where it is that the kind of gets nitpicky. I left Yob, but I can see why it is that I would kind of, let's say, remove Yob and put Candlemass or Saint Vitus or even Trouble, man.
Or Trouble, yeah.
Dude, I remember Trouble. I remember listening to Trouble records when I was a full-on metalhead and doom wasn't a thing. And it never even crossed my mind that it was this thing that would become so huge and sell so many records now, with festivals, solely kind of like made around that. And I'm thinking of Roadburn, for example, or Maryland Death Fest, or
Psycho Las Vegas.
That's the one I was thinking.
Oriented.
Yeah, Psycho Las
Stoner.
Vegas is the new one that's really been doing well, But if I'm right, I think some of the early Trouble records had some pretty heavy religious themes. Yeah?
Yeah, I think it was Trouble. Didn't they have a lot of
Run
Christian
to the Light.
themes?
Yeah, Run to the Light.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think one of the things that really amazed me is that while I was doing my college radio days, I had a full-on metal show. So most of it was really the thrash stuff. But I remember this guy who had a Christian show. So he'd play only Christian music. And he shows up with a Trouble record.
You're like, uh-oh, what? Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Yeah, and it's kind of like, I gotta say, it's like, oh, could this be any good? Because he kind of seemed like a little bit of a Ned Flanders guy. He looked like one of the Flanders kids, So I didn't trust it too much. Turns out he was absolutely right, and he's the one who didn't distinguish. As long as it spoke of Jesus, it mattered to him, Kim.
Anyway.
Preacher's daughter, ladies and gentlemen. Preacher's daughter.
Missionary's daughter.
Missionary's daughter.
Yeah, MK. Anyway, so
that's how
very interesting about the poll.
Yeah.
I mean, man, us metalheads are such dicks sometimes about stuff.
Yeah. Everybody's
we can really be, like what's your battle your battle vest, what's your patches?
Here, look, this is what I represent. Listen, I understand.
Again, not to make, I don't want to make this like a sexism thing or whatever, but when you're a chick and you're a metalhead and you don't, like, for me, I don't look necessarily like I don't have the uniform, I don't have the look of it.
You don't have the uniform.
But if I'm at let's say I went to an Abbott show and wearing, like, I don't even know what I was wearing, I Hate God or some kind of Buzz Oven t-shirt. This is an example because it's happened a million times where guys will come up and say, I hate God. Is that your boyfriend's t-shirt?
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, and then it escalates from there with me leaving them crying and calling for their mothers. But yeah, it happens all the time. If you're a chick and you're in the metal scene, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
And the
So
funny thing about that is that the same can be put towards punk, but what's so funny is that these are genres, okay? They're angry genres. But just because you're angry, or just because there's this heavy energy, it doesn't mean you have to be stupid either. It's like everybody wears a uniform. So accept the fact that if you're dressed punk and if you're dressed metal and you think you're being anti-establishment, look in the mirror again and then look at your friend next to you at a Slayer concert. Give me a fucking break. At least be self-aware. At least be self-aware. Music is music, man. Let's have fun. Leave the fucking uniform at the door, will you? You know what it is that I do? Maybe because I gotta be contrarian or I got something stupid to prove. I show up in a John Coltrane shirt. Because if I can get a metalhead, I went to the Melvins show with a John Coltrane shirt. Because if I can get somebody who's at a Melvins show to talk John Coltrane with me, there's some crossover, and I'm hoping that crossover, that unspoken crossover, is where it is that we'll find the most interesting stuff, not the obvious. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, everyone wears a uniform. I always just wear whatever I was wearing at the record store that day. And sometimes that's like a pink shirt or whatever. And then, yeah, chicks. Okay, so let's get into these records, because, man, I have a bunch of stuff here.
You want to get started on what you were listening to? You want to go first, or should I?
I want to talk about that. Let's talk about that Earthless first.
Let's talk about that Earthless. I picked that up. I got that yesterday. Let me put it up ahead.
I got that on last week. A week ago Sunday, I think.
Okay, so you're late to the party too when it comes to Earthless.
Well, I meant to buy it. I just hadn't had a chance to go get it. I buy all of the Earthless. I'm a big fan of Earthless.
Okay.
If I can frickin' find the thing.
I have mine up. Okay, what it is that I'll do is, this is actually another thing that I'll talk about when it comes to metal records. But here, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what the package is like. It's got a really beautiful printed inner sleeve.
Here's mine.
Secondly, it's got a debossed cover with foil on it. You see here the hot foil, the hot stamp. A really psychedelic, trippy cover and gatefold of them playing. And if you open up the gatefold, you'll see that it just opens up into something nice. All this is to say that it's a gorgeous package. Okay.
And it's also kind of, except for the foil, it's a matte finish.
Yeah.
It's got a slightly matte, not rubberized, but just slightly matte. I love that. I love when it's like that.
Oh, yeah.
It helps with fingerprints, too.
It's a beautiful package, Nuclear Blast, which kind of brings me to point number 2. And you know what? The record, I bought it.
Oh, beautiful. I want to show my record, too. Is yours
I got Splatter, this kind of like...
Yeah, that?
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Holy shit, look at that, you guys. Oh.
It's beautiful. It's awesome. I liked it. Everything was perfect. We'll get to the music, of course. But
okay.
I was looking through, and this is kind of like another pet peeve when it comes to metal, and maybe we can talk about it a little later after we cover all of it, but no, you know what? I'm going to talk the variations, the different color variants. Let's save that until we talk about all the records. For now, let's just talk about this gorgeous Splatter record. And the fact that a lot of you vinyl junkies have been praising the record, and it's the first Earthless record that is not instrumental, features vocals, which is a little bit of a shock because it's not a new band, right? So it's kind of like, okay, why are they doing this and how's it going to come off? Because people that go to Earthless shows just go for that big psychedelic thing. Exactly. You're showing their last album from 2013, right?
Yeah.
How would the vocals play? Would they be done right? Your thoughts first,
Kim. There was a
Kim.
little bit of vocal on this one, but not like this new one. Am I wrong? I don't know. This one's red, by the way.
I don't remember that one. What's that one called? From the Ages? Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's a great record.
Anyway, okay, yes, but it is. They have changed. They have slowly gone from completely instrumental to. I think there's a smidge of vocals on here, and then vocals on the new one.
Yeah, your memory might be better than mine.
I could be wrong.
All this is to say that they are vastly, predominantly instrumental, right up to this record, which is basically a fully vocal record. I mean, you know, there's vocals that are present throughout. It's not a smidge.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So what did you think?
I love it, but I'm biased. I straight up admit, I I love Earthless. Those guys know what they're doing. They're technically very, very good, but they're also very, very heavy, which I like. I mean, you don't have to. Some of those bands, some of the like Matt Pike said, when you're playing with Sleep, it's not a matter of fingery, technically kind of stuff, but
It's
you can
about a
tell that these
groove.
guys absolutely know what they're doing.
Yeah. The thing is quite the technically proficient album. One thing that just really caught me immediately is, you know, this is supposed to be quote unquote stoner rock, desert rock, whatever you call it. You would think, you know, people who are smoking massive amounts of weeds would be kind of like fucking wheelchair bound. Dude, this drummer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, this does not fuck around. This guy's metronome timing. I mean, we're not talking about fucking double bass drum, you know, death metal to death. But for the music it is, a lot of, you know, the bass and the drums really have to lay it down. And the groove really gets driven by that. And with this Earthless record, you can tell that the drums lock everything into place, right? Did you get that feeling as well?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They are, I can't think of what that dude's name is, but yeah, they're meticulous. Just
they're like a heavier
point, that guy.
Yeah. And I mean, I get the feeling, again, you know, we're just talking terms and stuff, that there's a certain feeling of kind of like this heavy desert sound with a big fuzzy wah, but it's kind of got the guitars sometimes got this muffle on it that gives it this psychedelic craziness, but not desert in the same way as
Queens of the Stone Age or Caius
or whatever. Caius, exactly, or Brant Bjork or any of those bands, because that stuff is kind of well, Queens of the Stone Age, maybe not. Queens of the Stone Age tends, I don't know, to me it's, I just hear metal. I don't know what I hear. I just hear Queens of the Stone Age. But
I don't hear it at all.
You know,
go ahead.
But Caius, for example, or the Brant Bjork bands, I'm sorry, the names of the individual bands aren't coming to me right now. Okay, but those bands have a little bit of that stoned vibe, but a little bit more of that relaxed vibe, you know, where it's like, you don't think too much of technical proficiency. Listening to this Earthless record, has, I feel, if it maintains that desert sound, but it's got that proficiency, which doesn't take it to high on fire. It's like, it's not wankery, but the instrumentation, man, these guys have practiced so much and it's obvious.
Yeah, it's amazing. Highly recommended. Thumbs, horns up.
Yeah, even in terms of the vinyl experience, I can also say, guys, you're getting the full package. You're getting a beautiful package. You're getting a nice slab of vinyl. So I think that it's worth it if you like that kind of music. This might catch you as a little bit of a surprise. First of all, I really liked the lyrics. I liked the singing. I thought the style blended in beautifully with what they were doing. And it certainly harkened back to the 70s while keeping a foot firmly in the modern stoner scene. But you know what's weird? I wish maybe you can help explain it to me. There's some reason that at various points through the album, I kept thinking about the Eagles. You're not gonna bail me out here, are you?
No, listen. If you hear an influence in, I wrote an influence on one of mine too, but I mean, I get it. The Eagles have a little bit of desert in them.
Yeah.
Not metal, but it's like slightly psychedelic, slightly desert.
Life in the fast lane.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, why not? Everybody influences everybody else, so yeah, I can see that. When I go back and listen to it, I might listen for it.
Yeah, but that's why I mentioned it to you, right? because I fully admit I've listened to the thing 2 times. Okay, so it's going to take more listens. So for me, I don't like we've already said, when it comes to categories, I don't look at categories like little boxes where you have to fight about the legitimacy of one box over another. I
Right.
generally name drop or I mention bands because I see them more as signposts.
Yeah, me too. It
Si-
helps. It helps other people be, oh,
yeah,
really? I'm interested. Or,
it
oh,
kind
I
of like
love that band.
it
Yeah.
adjusts your compass a little bit, not more than that, and it's very, very loose. The band is what it is, and you got to listen to it in order. But so that said, I've listened to the record twice, and it's made me think of the Eagles twice. I don't know why, and it's caused you to laugh, and God bless you, I understand. But
I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, it happens all the time.
there's got to be a reason, though. There's got to be
gotta
a
be a
reason
reason.
because it's not just at one point. I heard it at other points, and I know that now that I listen to it, and I hope the other people you guys that know Earthless, who are curious to maybe look up Earthless in our forum and see for yourself if you listen into that, because, there's got to be some kind of degree. There's got to be 6 degrees of fucking the Eagles somewhere there.
Um, Not to go too off tangent, but okay, signpost. If you like your metal more instrumental than vocal, you should listen to Karma to Burn.
Sure.
They are not doom, but they're more stoner desert. I don't know what the fuck they are.
Heavy psychedelic stoner, same thing.
I love Karma to Burn, and most of their stuff is instrumental, and it's amazing. So just throwing that out there. Let's talk about Yob.
I think actually, you know what? Maybe it's this, just to throw it out there and put a little bow tie on the Earthless. I think the vocals is what it is that brings the Eagles in a little bit more, because it drenches itself in the 70s and it kind of just adds a lot more of a songwriting vibe to what's going on, as opposed to just the big jam vibe to which a band like Karma to Burn would fit perfectly. So
maybe it's the cadence of his singing too, might have something to do with it.
To be continued.
Okay.
Thank you for laughing at me. Yob.
I'm here for you, man. Yob. By the way, I mention him all the time, but my best friend Hammond, who died 6 years ago, he's the one that turned me on to Yob, and he knew about them before anybody else. Anybody.
I knew him back in the Metal Blade days. Again, I was listening to Yob before Doom was a thing. Yeah, I remember those early days, okay? To me, the early days to me were like the late 90s, early 2000s, this birth of labels like Southern Lord, and a sound started consolidating there. But there was no title for any of this. So a band like Yob, for example, were on Metal Blade Records. And I think Trouble may have been on Enigma. I don't even remember. But there were no Doom labels for the most part. Man's Ruin just played heavy stuff. The Melvrins were on it, but it wasn't a Doom label. And, yeah, man. That's like the Yob started way back then, which is why I included them in my Doom top 4. What do you think of the new one, though? Came out last week.
I have listened to this every day, a couple times, twice a day, for 7 days now. I cannot get enough of this fucking album. Also, variations, which we can talk about if we have enough time, if we get there. Mine I got is the gold.
Oh. I got black. I got black.
Almost dropped it. Black. I mean, I just went and I called the guys that I knew would have it, and I was like, you got any left? I said, he's got one, and I was like, I'll come get it. I don't care what it is, and it ended up being gold. It's very, very pretty.
Well, we can now say halfway, and we'll complete the color variations conversation at the end once we get to Judas Priest, but Earthless, 7 different vinyl variations. This Yob record has 10 different vinyl variations, for a total of, if Discogs is correct, 8,400 records. So 10.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and I'm not one to collect them all, but I saw the one that Mem posted. I guess he might have gotten the deluxe. I think there was a banner in it, and his was like pink in this gold. It was really beautiful. But okay, the music was what matters here. Well, the packaging is great. It's the same. It's got a slightly more slick. It's not matte, is what I'm saying.
No, it's a pretty standard sleeve, but okay, man. It's fine. It's a good sleeve.
It's fine.
I dig
it's a gatefold.
It's not deluxe. The one that I have here is not deluxe at all. As a matter of fact, in the case of Yob, when I say color variations and I say that they had 10 of them, it's not really true. It's 9. But when they talk about black, they have the regular black, which I assume is 140 or 150 gram, and then they got the 180 gram black, which I assume probably has a different jacket. I can't say. I get confused.
The jacket on this one is really nice. It's tip-top quality. It's really nice and thick and heavy and everything. But let's talk about the music. Because holy F, y'all, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
Particularly the screen for me, which is on side A. I think it's the second side.
Yeah, the second song.
The second song.
That was one of the heavier songs.
It is one of the heavier, and I like all of it. I mean, I like the ones that aren't as heavy, but that riff on the screen.
Yeah. I won't do it.
It's really, really good. I would eat this album if I could. It is so good.
That's the headbanger riff. That's the headbanger riff on the record. I completely agree. I had 2 things that immediately jumped out at me. First off was side B is what caught my attention. The second part of side B. Actually, side B is just one song. It's the Reverie / Lungs Reach. But the interesting thing about Lungs Reach is that they do stuff that isn't Yob like, I guess from the past albums. Like Yob generally is really, they focus on those 3 instruments. But at this point, you hear a lot more atmospheric stuff happening that actually kind of reminded me a little bit of some of the stuff that Black Sabbath did, like E5150 before they go into Mob Rules, or, you know, the atmospheric stuff that happens before Disturbing the Priest. But there was just something there, not as dark as the Black Sabbath, but just kind of to use it as an analogy. But and I looked in the notes and it's like, oh, cool. They got a guy there. Those notes were made using prepared piano. And prepared piano is something that we see more in classical music, contemporary classical. Basically, what they do is they take the piano, they open it up, and they hang all sorts of shit off the strings so that when you press the key, it makes different noises. Depending on what you hang on the keys, the piano is going to sound different. John Cage started it ages ago. Right. To see this done on a Yob album was mind-blowing, and it worked to great effect. They really created an atmosphere.
I cannot stress it enough. That album is fucking amazing. It's Sleep, The Sciences, and Yob are my 2 top albums releases of this year, of any genre and all genres. That Yob is so good.
Yeah, the other thing that I wanted to say about Yob is I feel that they... Marrow. Just marrow. Off the last one. Just marrow. And everybody points to that, and like there's something spiritual. I don't know, it's such a weird thing with bands like Yob and even Neurosis, right? There's something somehow really spiritual there, like they're just reaching for something. But the music, especially in the case of Neurosis, can get so fucking heavy. Not violent, but I don't know, man. There's this violent energy to it. And it's the same thing with Yob. You know, you can't necessarily pinpoint it as being something spiritual, but Marrow was, you know, last song on the last album, which is what, Clearing the Path to Ascend, I think it was called, right?
Yeah.
Just, you got that feeling where it's like, okay, Mike Scheidt just kind of reached this other level where he's kind of like existing almost on a plane unto itself and creating music that only he can create and only he can infuse with his unique energy. Listening to this last one, it felt like maybe, of course, a near-death experience. I mean, the guy, nearly
almost died. Yeah.
And this record is very much a result of that. But that feeling, that otherworldliness, that element, that spiritual element that raises a band like Neurosis is ever present on this Yob record. Our Raw Heart, much more so than any other time in their career. It's really, I can't quantify it, or I can't explain it in any logical way other than it's a feeling. And I know that when I listened to the record, dude, the first time, I mean, I put it on, I smoked a joint, I made sure I turned everything off. I wanted to listen to just the music. I opened up the gatefold and made sure that I read along. And I felt like Mike was letting us in on his journey a little bit. There's something special about this record, man.
Something very special about this record.
And, no, go ahead. Did you have something to say?
No, go ahead.
Our Raw Heart, the last song on the album, that's the new Marrow, man. Our Raw Heart's the last one, and there's a maturity there. His voice, he uses different inflections with his voice, and he's just reaching beyond where he's already been. And all I can say is the art world's better for it, man. Fucking bravo, Mike. Bravo, all of you guys. This is I thought that Sleep the Sciences would just be, nothing can be better because it's such a fucking flawless record, but this is another thing altogether. This is different in the sense that it's like an oeuvre. You know what I mean? It's like a work of art. It's Sleep the Sciences is like fucking Stonehenge. It's like they've created this other monolith in music, for us to visit. Whereas the latest Yob record is almost like, I don't know, man, reading a Dostoevsky novel or something like that. That's what it is that I mean. It's just there's a certain imprint that's been put on the music that takes doom. I always describe, I use the Thelonious Monk example on how he mentions jazz, right? And he just points to the piano and says, look, jazz is this piano here. I'm trying to take the music and go beyond the keys. And it feels like Yob is kind of doing that, almost creating a language that only they speak.
Same thing with Om.
Oh, yeah. Om is...
It's like transcendental metal.
Yeah. I listen to Om for the same reason I listen to Alice Coltrane.
Yeah.
That's, I'm pretty sure that if Cisneros heard that, he'd be pretty happy with it, too.
He should be, because you know what? Matt Pike gets all the love. Cisneros is the shit.
Cisneros,
dude,
yeah.
He is the man. He is next level, that dude, I think. He's like that. He's out there floating around with Coltrane and Alice and whoever.
I get it. I understand the analogy, yes. And he's what is it that I'm trying to say here? Cisneros, in terms of this Sleep album, and I got it in the background now, I'm going to do a shootout between the two records because I do have both versions, okay? But where do you place this Sleep record in terms of their catalog? Like, for me, it's my favorite Sleep record. Straight. It's my favorite one.
I don't know yet. I have too much time with the other ones. It's been so long. But I would put it on equal footing with the other ones. I don't think it's less than in any way. I don't know if it's greater than, but it is definitely equal to, if not better. I don't know. Did I tell you I went and bought I told you I was going to buy the CD. I bought the CD, so I have the vinyl and the CD. So I could listen into the car uninterrupted. Yeah, it's so good. It may end up being my favorite Sleep. Right now, I'm just like, I like all of it, and I'm just obsessed with that album.
Well, look, I mean, I can outline why I think it's my favorite Sleep. Okay, and one of them is exactly what we've been talking about. That's the Cisneros effect. You hear, like, whereas these bands, okay, before way early in the Dope Smoker, Holy Mountain days, all the rest of that, They didn't have these other successful projects. They came together, and then High on Fire happened, and then Ohm happened, and then these guys went off and created their own version of their music and developed an identity and a voice for themselves. This many years after the fact, they have these identities and they have this stuff that they worked all of their careers on, and they bring it back to this same feeling, to the same vibe, to the same aesthetic that they started 25 years prior, but they without 25 years of experience and without 25 years of musical, experimentation. And you hear it. That's the reason it is that I like this record. You can hear the Ohm effect there. It's not an Ohm record, it's a Sleep record. But the Ohm effect, the drony effect that makes me listen to Ohm in the same mind frame as an Alice Coltrane record is there in the Sleep record, and it wasn't there before. And that just makes it even more stoner. It's like, I
can't believe we're talking about this album again.
How can we not? It's the best fucking thing that's coming out. For me, it's my favorite album this year so far. Okay. That's the first reason.
Man. Yeah, this and that, y'all. Hey,
second reason. Second reason? No, second reason, the songs are shorter. The songs are shorter, it means you can place them on the radio, and I think that it's just easier to digest small things. It'll come off better live, and you don't have to be as much of a head. That's why it's my favorite record. Did you see the difference between the two of them, Kim? Have you seen the other Fancy Schmantz? Or do you have it?
What are you talking about?
There's two versions of Sleep, right? I'm showing them both.
Yeah, I have the green, the translucent green. I know you had the split.
I have the split, yeah. And what happened is Ben at Third Man sent the other one. So I now have both. Now, I want to do a back-to-back just to kind of illustrate why I think that the entire color vinyl market and just the collector market is really silly. Okay. This here, we'll start with this one here. Okay. This is, no, actually, let's start with the average one, the one that you're going to find elsewhere, everywhere, which is the big astronaut kind of floating into space. This is gorgeous, but this is kind of like the more standard version. I forgot what color my records are. I think my records are plain old black, but dude, the jacket has this big fucking breakfast in the middle, beautiful stout and tip-on jacket, like gorgeous. Everything's gorgeous. Printed inner sleeves, everything, the full experience, 180 gram, everything's perfect. But this is the normal one, right? Then there's the one that everybody wants that was available only in independent record stores and came out on 420. And that's the one of the astronaut with the guitar basically on a planet somewhere. Okay. Now, this one fetches $200 on Discogs. Can I tell you that this normal one here, Kim, the normal one, the one that you have, the translucent, I think that's the one I have too.
No, you have the split black and green. I have the translucent green.
No, but I have both, right? So I'm showing the translucent green. The one that you're showing right now, that is better than this collector version. It is. Okay, it is. The notes are better. This jacket over here is not gatefold. The big collector one is not gatefold. As a matter of fact, the paper is flimsy. It's not the same cardstock as the translucent one. The translucent one is a much better experience. And the liner notes on the translucent one are clear and legible. You can take them out. The liner notes on this are, let me pull this out. Dude, literally, really, like it's typewritten on a green fucking loose leaf.
Okay.
And because it's a little bit, it's a flimsier jacket, it's kind of like more prone to getting damaged. All this is to say, the reason I'm pointing all of this out is all this is to say that, guys, if you really want to know, if the music is all the same, okay, because the vinyl was pressed at Third Man. Third Man does it right every time, so it's perfect, no matter what you get. But if you really want to talk about value, and you care about the music and not the collectability, the normal version is far better, is way better than the collector version. It's more solid. That's what I guess I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
Did I talk too much about? Yeah, cool.
It's okay. I think I don't have a problem with the 50 million versions
You
of
don't, eh?
stuff. People like what they like. Makes it kind of fun, but yeah, I mean, don't be upset if you can't find that split one. The translucent green and the regular black one are awesome.
You're not missing anything. You're honestly not missing anything, especially when you're talking about the quality of the vinyl. Third Man doesn't make bad wax. They don't. And if you want a better jacket and you just want the regular one's better. You say you're not okay. You're right. People are allowed to like what you want, but let's say there's no. We can, I guess, start talking a little bit about.
I have other music to talk about too.
We can. Okay, yeah, go for it.
All right. Do you want to go or you want me to go?
No, go for it, man. We'll get to it. Go.
Okay. I found this on accident yesterday. Speaking of St. Vitus, my friend Henry owns a record store here in the area called Born Late. He is the current drummer for St. Vitus.
Oh, nice.
He's not the original because he's younger than those guys, but he's been playing with them for I don't even know how long, years and years. Anyway, he's got a metal record store and we're friends. He's on tour right now with the Skull.
Oh, sure.
Really cool. Yeah. He's playing drums for them. Anyway, I walked into
Members of Trouble are in there too.
Uh-huh. I walked in and I was kind of looking around and I saw this and I didn't know it at all. It's a band called White, W-I-G-H-T.
Oh, nice.
Which is like a white? It's like a specter, a reanimated corpse. It's like
ghostly
that, like
apparition.
Whatever, yeah. So, okay. That's the cover. And of course I was like, ooh, that's kind of cool. And if you unfold it, it's all one thing, one picture. On the inside has the list of the songs.
Who put it out?
And the dudes, they're called Incontrivable? They're German. By Location. That's who it was.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, By Location. Sure, they put out a lot of metal stuff.
Yeah. So, and it's from 2012. And they're German. And I don't think I think it's just black vinyl. But, okay, so I know how you love all the quality kind of stuff. This is tip top. It's slightly matte. It's very thick. It's gatefold. The inner sleeves are paper, but poly lined on the inside. I love that. Ooh, I love that.
It's funny. You're showing that package, and it kind of reminds me of the quality of Southern Lord stuff. Southern Lord puts out some nice packaging too.
Yeah. So I went in. I bought it just because I liked the name and I really liked the art. And I knew it was a metal shop. Oh, it's got a poster on the inside too that folds out. Whatever.
Kim, center yourself more, man. No, you. You're like, there we go. We need to see you.
Well, I can't tell. Okay. So anyway, the music is awesome. It's really good. It's doomy, but it's also psyche. It's also stonery. There's a little bit of other instrumentation besides just your typical drums, bass, guitar, vocals. I think there's some saxophone in there occasionally. I don't know. They're fun. Really, really good. And they have a little bit of a sound. I think there is a riff that is a direct copy of a pentagram riff. Like I instantly recognized it. Now I don't remember what it was, but they sound kind of like Karma to Burn. There's a little bit of Ozzy in there, Doom, and there's almost a little bit of like Soundgarden in there. I don't know. I really, really like it. It's really good.
Dude, Soundgarden was Doom to me as much as anything else, man. I listened to Bad Motorfinger and I listened to a song like Slaves and Bulldozers and I put it in the same category. Again, this is before all these terms existed, right? You try to point people to Soundgarden and say that's Doom today, of course, they wouldn't be happy.
Yeah, they're gonna fight.
Oh, yeah. But back then, I can tell you one thing. Back then, when Bad Motorfinger came out and went Louder Than Love, it's like we definitely heard Black Sabbath in there. We were definitely thinking these guys were worshiping on the same tip as, you know, all the doom bands that we talk about today.
By the way, the name of that album is Through the Woods into Deep Water.
That's White?
If you look for White, W-I-G-H-T from
on
Deutschland.
Bilocation Records from, I believe, Germany, right?
Yeah, 2012. And they have some other albums, so I'm going to start hunting them down because I really like these guys. Like
Wicked,
a
man.
lot. So
thanks for pointing it out. I have two more, and I guess, yeah, two more. We can just save the multiple copies thing, multiple colors conversation for another time because it's too long and I don't feel like bitching now. So let's just talk about music. The other thing that I listened to, and I know you have it as well, is this Nails record. This was reissued not long ago, Abandon All Life. It originally came out on Southern Lord in 2013, and there's a few reasons why I mentioned this. Is yours gatefold as well, Kim?
Yeah. I've had this for a while.
Yeah. Well, like. you know what it is that I noticed with this? This I got from the VMP store. And there are a bunch of things, because when I talk about full vinyl experience and really giving people their value, okay, it's a gatefold record. It's a nice jacket. Really it is. Not like high anything, but it's got a printed inner sleeve. It's got a nice piece of wax. The back, it's Southern Lord. The back has kind of like this debossed Southern Lord hot stamp at the bottom. This record cost $16.99. It costs nothing. All this is to say that it can be done. It can be done. And Southern Lord, as much as they do participate in the whole multiple color versions, they do wind up doing vinyl right. You know, they have all the special versions and stuff, but if you're able to get a copy like this, like a gatefold, foil embossed, all the rest for under $20, that's value, man.
They probably saved money by the album being about 14 minutes long.
Yeah, it's a short one, isn't it?
It is brutal and fast. It's not, to me, it's not doom at all, but
no,
it's brutal and fast.
It's another level of angry that they possess by themselves, and I really like that level of angry. And you know, when a record's that angry, I don't need it to be 75 minutes long. That's too much angry. 15 or 20, like you said, 18 minutes long. It's a really short record. You get a blast, just this blast of aggression, and it's kind of like you just let it out, you know.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Nails, to be honest. I like that album, and
really?
man, it is brutal and in your face.
I can imagine watching that live. I can imagine watching Nails live and wanting to see half an hour of them laying waste to everything in sight.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. Maybe my hang up is, if I want a fast, brutal, short album, I'm probably going to go to punk. Then I am going to go, I don't know. I got some weird, I don't hate them. I own the album and it's awesome. I'm not decided yet on how I feel
but fair
about
enough.
Nails.
The thing is that we come from two different places, right? You come from a lot more of a punk, post-punk place, and I come from a lot more of a metal place type of thing. So we approach the music from different places. It makes sense. You know, like I wouldn't go to punk, for example. I would go to this precisely because it is a metal record, and that's what I look for. I look for that aggression in that way that punk doesn't express generally in that way. Okay, if you're talking about the UK band Doom, then yeah, they're very much, you know, they vomit out the words to you, and it's just aggressive and in your face. Punk is more obnoxious.
Not all of it.
Not all of it.
Yeah.
But I get your argument. I get your argument. Municipal Waste would be another example, right? Municipal Waste is another band that puts out short records and they blast out a lot of aggression during time, but there's more of a fun element.
But I mean, I don't mind the fast and the aggressive. There's something about that band I'm unsure about.
It's angry.
You know what I mean? I don't know what it is.
It's angry. Now, for me, that's the first thing. Just it's very angry.
I need angry sometimes, so it's not that. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, I mean, you like it though, right? Did you just get it?
I got it on Thursday, so I've listened to it a
Okay.
bunch of times, and yeah, I hear
Well, you
you.
could listen to it a bunch of times because it's
Yeah, it's like it's
18
nothing.
minutes.
It's like, oh, it's over already. Okay, I'll put side one on again. But no, but that's good. You know, the fact we're here just trying to have a conversation and we're trying to open it to other ideas. So the fact that you're saying, okay, well, there's something that bothers you. I'm wondering if there's something that bothers everybody else that's watching, and maybe they'll be able to kind of like take the conversation where we haven't, you know?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like the guys that wear the nails shirts are douches.
Yeah, that I can.
That
Yeah,
might be it. It might be the
that could
fan base that makes me not
absolutely
like them.
be it. But that would be the wrong reason.
Yeah, I know it would be, but that might be some. I mean, I hadn't thought about it until just the second that maybe that's what's giving
Fair.
me a not distaste, but a slight hesitation with that band.
Yeah, it's funny. I respect you
I don't
more
know.
for at least being able to say, hey, you know what? Maybe it's not about the music at all. It is that. Because we do that. I mean, we do. We try not to, but,
Yeah.
you know. Kim.
Hey, I scored something I want to show because I scored it as he was putting it out yesterday. Oh,
Let's see.
and it goes right in the
Ooh, the brown note. Earth 2.
Earth to 1993 Sub Pop. Yes, this is drone before drone, but it is definitely, to me, it's doomy. It's drone. It's drone. It's like the epitome, the start of it probably. But drone and doom, like again, that umbrella, they overlap.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
all exploring the same type of vibe before Doom ever became a thing. And absolutely, man. We all put it in the same place at that time. Yeah, that's very brown notes to me. I can't listen to that too much. It makes me nauseous.
Yeah, I know. And sun, sun can be that way too. But there's something for me personally, the heavier, the more your entire skeleton is being pulverized. And if it's repetitive, Swans can be like that. Melvins can be like that. Sun, this, whatever. There's something about that is my very favorite type of metal.
Yeah.
The heavier, the darker, the more skull crushing, and the more repetitive. I'm in, and I can't believe I was just like, I saw him put it out, and I was just like, boop, 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 mine.
And can you play that? Can you play all four sides at once?
Of this sucker? Sure. If I'm in the right mood for it.
I can't do it, man. I've said this before, but that's just, to me, that the bottom end.
It's intense. This is beyond music into the physical realm.
Yeah, it makes me, that's exactly it. It just affects me physically, and kind of like the brown, I always talk about the brown note. Like I can listen to 20 minutes before I shit my pants.
That's why it's called the brown note.
That's why it's called the brown note. These guys, boom, man, at about the 20 minute mark, I was like, oh, I feel like just fucking vomiting from every orifice in my body.
You're just like, something has gone horribly awry.
Yeah, but what a great record. I got it too. I play it all the time.
Yeah, well, I've never been able to lay hands on it, so to be honest, yeah, that's score.
And I'm gonna finish with my last one,
which
I really wanted, and it's a record that I wasn't thinking about picking up, and seeing it posted a ton on Vinyl Junkies is what got me to pick it up. I listened, Judas Priest Firepower is what I'm talking about, the latest record. I listened to only the single, and it's like, not the same. And I realized that that's kind of doing this music a disservice.
Yeah.
But I just kept seeing Judas Priest fans posting up the fact that they kept buying, and everyone saying it's good, it's classic Priest. I had to give it another listen because I love this band that much, and I'm glad I did. The record, a double record, it's out. Sony put it out. There are 17 different versions of this record. 17. Gorgeous double embossed. It's got some spot varnish. The cover looks kind of like this automaton that's just all flames. It's gorgeous, and it's what I would consider a classic Judas Priest record.
Yeah, absolutely.
New wave of British heavy metal. It's got that anthemic Judas Priest stuff that nobody does better than them. It's kind of like nobody does AC. Everybody can copy it, but nobody does AC/DC like AC/DC. Nobody does Judas Priest like Judas Priest. They've changed what they do. It doesn't, Painkiller doesn't sound like Stained Class, but this one has the anthems that you'll catch in Stained Class, or you'll catch in even Ram It Down, just, you know, or what's Parental Guidance, I think, was on Ram It Down. Just a whole bunch of the anthemic stuff with the heaviness of some of the tunes of Painkiller and some of the newness of Painkiller. Like, Halford doesn't sing like he used to. Halford can still hit the note, but he doesn't rely on that anymore. He's got kind of this growl, and he lets an attitude that he's earned from doing it for so long kind of take over. And Judas Priest has become a fucking well-oiled machine, and I love this record. I'm so happy I picked it up, Kim. So happy.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely is worthy of their entire discography. I think it's, again, I don't mind if bands, you know, they change over time. And sometimes you have the Metallica argument, and sometimes you have Judas Priest.
Yeah. And what I like about Judas Priest is that they're not trying to be anything other than what they are, and that's all they gotta be. You see, again, when we think of Halford, we always think about the blood-curdling scream. I mean, him and Dio created the metal scream. Right. That's not what he's doing anymore. He's the elder statesman, and if you see this guy live, he just fucking struts around like he's the elder statesman, like he owns this motherfucker, and you can't tell him what to do. Yeah, well, and he's right. He's right. Yeah. And he still commands that presence. He's old, and he still commands that presence. Like, motherfucker, till I die, I'm it.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing record.
You know what the thing is there too? Like, okay, you could be like a literal rock star and command that kind of presence, and you can be swaggery and stuff like that. But I never get the sense from him, and I could be totally wrong, that he's a dick about it. Like, none of you are worthy. It's more like,
nah,
I'm Rob Halford.
He's born into it.
You know what I mean? Like,
he's like Lemmy. He's just born into it.
Yeah, I love those guys.
He can't be anything but. He is metal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know, we know the other types, so he's the opposite of that.
Yeah, he's some everything of those that's other right. Guys,
you're just like, dude, stop.
Just stop.
But, just stop. Yeah. But Halford.
So yeah,
and that album is kick ass.
It is, and you know,
highly recommended.
One of the most interesting things, they're on tour right now with Deep Purple.
Mm-hmm. I love Deep Purple.
It seems like such an odd combination, and yeah, okay, Deep Purple doesn't have it doesn't matter, man. To catch Gillan on one end and then catch Halford on the other doing what they do. Oh boy, I know there's going to be a lot of old people, and you can make all the jokes, but I'm telling you, I want to be one of those old people in the crowds because I gotta hear that shit.
I'm dying. I would go to it. I just can't do those super big arena. I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. I've seen them.
That's the caveat.
But hopefully it'll bring some more focus back to Deep Purple and how significant and important they are, because people just think Smoke on the Water. That's all. I mean, that's all they think.
No.
Deep Purple is the shiznit. Pay attention, people.
Metal a Headbanger's Journey, right? When they start asking everybody who the original godfathers of metal are. You know, everybody mentions who they mention. Of course, the Black Sabbaths and the Blue Cheers and everything. But, you know, Lemmy, you know, when I think about it, it's probably Deep Purple. Who the fuck's going to argue with him? He's right.
Lemmy
in rock.
Was always right. Yeah.
In rock.
He's right.
Come on,
did. They totally rocked. They still rock. More power to him. Up with some more Deep Purple. And Rob Halford. Rob Halford knows what he's doing. Why would they bring him on tour? He could have any band he wanted to go on tour with them, and he chose Deep Purple for a reason.
Yeah.
So
Kim,
respect.
Can you believe this, man? I have no trouble believing it at all, but we're up to 1 minute and 9 seconds. Man, we can continue for another half hour easily. We didn't get to everything yet. Metal by the Numbers. There were a bunch of things. This was fun.
Yeah, I could talk about metal all day long, especially in this umbrella, this genre.
Well, yeah, I know. We haven't gone into a lot of the stuff that you're really into, like the I Hate Gods and the sludge stuff and, you know, all that American black metal stuff that I know you're into. And that'll be for another time. Hey, man, we got time to talk about Wolves in the Throne Room and all of those guys. But this was fun, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes. Metal. 24/7.
What do you think of?
Damn, I love it.
What do you think of the new time? What do you think of doing this at night at the end of the week like this?
It's okay, except it's not always going to work for me. We'll try. We'll see. It might have to be a little bit earlier. We can talk about that offline. I'm sure everybody's thrilled.
This felt right. Thanks for watching, folks. This was amazing, man. Have a good week, all right?
Get it.
Get that yob. And the sleep too, the regular version. You don't need to spend on the big one.